Won't you take me back to Tennessee?
The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest info about hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. This episode is brought to you by GSM Outdoors, whose vision is to preserve the sportsman's legacy, fuel innovation, and enable the next generation of outdoor enthusiasts. Think outside. That's where you'll find us. Now, make welcome your host, Jason Harmon.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Another great show lined up for you today here at the Region 3 office, and Miss Mime Barnes is now helping me co-host.
Oh, so fun. I love being on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have Mime in the house, and it's always fun to come to Region 3 and talk outdoors, whether it's wildlife, fisheries. Today it's fisheries, and we got Mr. Mike Jolley with us again.
Yeah,
so
good to be here. Thank you.
If you know the show, you know Mike. Mike's been on, I don't know, maybe 2-3 times or more. So
yeah, that'd be accurate.
Don't quote me. I think that's right. And it's always a fun conversation. I think the last show maybe was on Watts Bar. I think the last time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a
nice
good episode.
Outdoor setting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had fun. Yeah. Oh, we always do.
Good
but
show.
today,
it's all about that little squirrely walleye, right?
the walleye. And we will talk about the walleyes.
Hey, it's a good time to be outdoors right now.
It is.
It's hunting season, and then deer, whatever's going on, and then ducks here, but walleye fishing is great this time of year.
It is.
Good time of year to be out fishing as well. So just because it gets cold doesn't mean you can't
Hook or
enjoy
bullet,
it.
hook or bullet.
Yeah, you pick. You pick. Well, Mike, for those who are listening or watching that don't know you, remind us who you are and what you do for the agency.
Yeah. So, Reservoir Fisheries Manager here for Region 3, and I've worked with the reservoirs in this region my whole career, which is post 30 years now.
All right.
It's been great. It still is very, dynamic between the reservoirs. We have reservoirs on the Cumberland River system and the Tennessee River system, 9 in total, 150,000 acres of water, but they're all unique in their own way. So, Cumberland River, we have Dell Hollow, Center Hill, Cordell Hull, Great Falls, and then on the Tennessee River, Watts Bar, Nickajack, Chickamauga, Parksville, and the upper end of Guntersville. So they all bring different management challenges, but also a lot of gratification as well. So
got your hands full, don't you?
Yeah, my hands full. It is. It's things constantly change, and but a great thing. I wouldn't take anything for all the experiences and just the privilege of being able to manage those resources.
And a great crew that you work with, right?
Great crew. Always a shout out to them, and just really work hard. And one of the things I look for when we're incorporating people into the agency or the crew is that they are very passionate about it. You can't put that in somebody, and that's what I have. So it's like autopilot. They're looking for new projects, new things, and avenues to do things. And so it's just a great fit. It's a great part to be, for being a part of a great crew. Always.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, today we're going to dive in literally into some walleye talk.
Oh, what a cool fish.
We mentioned it was a great time to be chasing them, so get out there and do that if you want to. But I'm looking forward to learning more about the work that we're doing with them here at the agency, and specifically here in the Region 3 area. So you want to dive into what they look like?
Yeah, let's kick it off by just talking about that fish for people who are listening. And many of our anglers already know, but there are a lot of people out there who need a description of that fish, and it is pretty amazing.
It is very dynamic, and I want to first say it's exciting to talk about walleye. It's one of my favorite fish to talk about. It's a native fish, of course, to Tennessee, but just the overall appearance of it and the dynamics of how it's wired to do what it does is very neat. And just for the people listening in, it's a large fish, can get very large, torpedo-shaped fish. Has a lot of variation in the color, blue-gray to yellow gold. We see a lot of variation with that. If you look at the arsenal that he brings, as he's looking at feeding on other fish, which is his major diet, he's got a good set of teeth out there, so you're not going to see people grabbing them with their thumb like they would a bass or a crappie. They might do it once. And then he's got some really neat with his eyes, and thus the name walleye. And they're bigger than a lot of other fish, and they also have a reflective membrane behind the retina, and it's reflective. So they have really good night vision. They do a lot of nocturnal activities, especially in the summertime. So they're closely related to the sauger, and they're differing in appearance, of course, a little bit different regimes in their spawning activities. They can coexist well in systems and keep the integrity of their species together. I would add that for their spawning activity is kind of neat for the walleye and the sauger, and they make what you would call a river run, and they're looking for shoals and stuff to spawn on. And the males will go first and stage in these areas of preferred spawning habitat. Then the female arrives, and it's a few week activity. Usually starts in March and goes into mid-April when water temperatures are about 42 to 50 degrees. And what's neat about it is, so we would consider bass and crappie nesting spawner. So the male will build a nest, female comes, deposits her eggs, and then the male fertilizes them. But for walleye and other river spawners, she'll be courted typically by a couple of male walleye, and she'll usually turn on her side, release her eggs, and then the males cover that up with sperm, and the eggs are fertilized, and they go through a process of floating down the river and getting into substrate and doing that. So that's a big difference with walleye and sauger versus some of the other fish in the reservoir, is how they spawn.
Wow.
So that's cool. Really neat.
It is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Neat. So I may be jumping the gun, and we may have this in the notes for later, but you talk about the way this fish looks.
Yeah.
But the world record came out of Tennessee, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's crazy what it looks like.
That's a really good story. And so when the reservoirs were impounded, before that, obviously, and by the way, I would say one more thing, and it leads into what I'm going to say, that the walleye, they inhabit rivers, lakes, and reservoirs. And I always like to say the difference between a lake and a reservoir for our audience: reservoirs are man-made, lakes are natural, like Reelfoot Lake, natural.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so with it being a man-made system, there's a lot more complications in managing a reservoir. They have unnatural drawdowns, but when they were flooded in Tennessee, the walleye were already there. And for this record fish, it was caught out of Old Hickory in 1960. So that was 25-pound fish. It was a little over 40 inches long, huge fish. And so Old Hickory was impounded in the mid-50s. So really just 5 years after that reservoir was impounded, this fish was caught. So she got all the splendors of the productivity that a new reservoir has to offer, all the forage that was there, so grew exponentially. And if you look at the old records of walleye in those systems before impoundment, there was a lot of double-digit walleye and stuff, so it's probably more of a southern strain walleye than what we have today, which is more of the Ohioensis strain that have been stocked through the several decades because it was easier to get those. So that is pretty dynamic about the record fish there. That is a world record, like you said. It's been there since 1960.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we always like to remind people that those reservoirs have a life.
Yes.
And that productivity can decrease over time.
Absolutely.
And it's one of the reasons for stocking programs across the state of Tennessee.
It is. And it's, that's on point for sure, Mimi, and that's one of the biggest things that we've had to augment fisheries populations, just because reservoirs, as they get older, like you said, the habitat degrades, the water quality can change as far as turbidity, can be more clear, which that favors some species over others, and so there's just, again, a lot of dynamics to these unnatural systems.
Sorry your job's so hard.
But
thank goodness that you all have knowledge of that and that scientific background to understand reservoir change over time and those stocking. And we'll dive in a little bit more to stocking.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Because the work that you all do is amazing there, and it's really reflective in angler surveys and more. But let's go back to that fish. I think about that luminous eye. That, for me, that's a telltale, and it's so interesting. But go into some of that range that we find the walleye and why they do so well in Tennessee.
It's really amazing what a big distribution they have in North America, and especially the United States. The northern range is all the way into Canada. And then if you really wanted to put a barrier of the Rocky Mountains to the west and the Appalachian Mountains to the east, they fall down in a triangle shape all the way down to the Mobile Basin, down through Georgia and Alabama. Tennessee, of course, being recipients there of being hosting native walleye populations, as did Georgia and Alabama. So there's a great big distribution that they have. And of course, I would still consider Tennessee to be in that southern range, which means we get to see greater growth rates than they would up in the Canada, Great Lakes area. There's incredible fisheries up north of walleye, but obviously with a world record that long, I mean, they have more opportunity through more heated days to grow at a larger size here. So, but yeah, it's amazing the range. So they're obviously native to Tennessee. It was a great consideration, and we'll talk about when we get into stocking is making sure they were indeed native to these areas where we're stocking them and different things. So, yeah, they do well. And I think if without the impoundments, you would still see those natural runs that were in place before the impoundments.
So longer growing period in the South means bigger walleye in the South.
Yes.
Haha, take that.
Yeah. And thank you for summarizing 4 sentences down to 1. That's awesome.
So is it accurate to say that our reservoirs are providing everything that walleye need here in Tennessee?
It is. The only thing I would say to that is from a reproduction standpoint, that's very limited. So what the impoundments did by creating deeper water instead of a river setting, it erased a lot of the opportunities they had for the substrate, gravel bars, sandbars, things that they like and need for spawning success. And that's what they go to. So that's covered up. But when you look at the life stages, from the egg to the fry, which is that hair-like structure with like a bubble on the end before they get to that juvenile, the reservoirs are providing, they're a great host for our walleye through all those stages. It's just that like we're having to inject those juvenile fish in stocking and circumvent that natural reproduction that they don't have as much opportunity to do on their own now.
Yeah.
But past that, we have great expectations, and we're seeing great results of what they're doing in the reservoirs.
So dive into that stocking, those stocking efforts a little bit.
Sure.
The wheres and whens and whys of it.
So TWRA has a long history of stocking fish in general and specifically for walleye. And in this region, Dale Hollow and Center Hill have been stocked for decades. They had populations of walleye there that still have great attempts each year for spawning runs in the upper ends of the reservoir and some different tributaries there that have the right habitat. And those have been very successful, and we're still stocking those 2 reservoirs annually today. And I would add Cordell Hull into that on the Cumberland River as well. And Cordell Hull, kind of a little sidebar there, it has always maintained one of the best self-supporting Sauger populations of any reservoir we manage in Region 3, and really comparable across the state. It does well on its own, and it's consistently done that. We've also stocked some walleye there that do well. But moving forward past that, in 2011, I had always wanted to stock walleye in the Tennessee River system. They were native there. There's lots of forage available there and habitat once they could get past that juvenile stage to really promote a good fishery. So we were able to do that in 2011 on Watts Bar. It's done wonderful. And because of the success we've realized there, we've moved to reservoirs downstream to Chickamauga and Nickajack. And there's also some there's other waters. I would encourage everybody to look online, at our website and see where walleye are stocked. But there's some other regions that have some walleye stocking programs too. But we're learning a lot from this Tennessee River system, and Watts Bar was the launching pad for that project. And I'm very excited about the results of that.
So why walleye over Sauger there?
Great question. So traditionally in Watts Bar, we had stocked annually Sauger into those systems. And Sauger, there used to be a little pamphlet that TWRA put out, and it had a picture of a Sauger, and it said Sauger, Tennessee's mystery fish. It's just a lot of unknowns, and probably for a species of fish that we've researched as an agency, there's been a lot of research done with Sauger. But one thing year after year that was hard with Sauger was they were unpredictable in hatchery systems. No fault of our hatchery or staff. They're wonderful people and do wonderful jobs. But sometimes it would be hard to collect the brood fish, the mom and daddy fish. Sometimes they would die easier. And it was just a lot of work. So walleye, what my selling points on the walleye is they live longer, they get to a bigger size, and they really offer a better year-round fishery. Now there's times in spawning season, and like you talk about now, when they kind of start congregating again, that they're both Sauger and walleye are easier to catch. But me and anglers have found that walleye get into some like bass-like patterns through the summer, and sauger, they just kind of fade away. Like, where'd they go? And then they're back again for spawning time.
Yeah.
But people are catching walleye really about year-round, you know.
pretty cool.
And I might add, they're great table fare, too.
Yeah.
As is sauger.
Do you see folks coming down from other states or coming up from other states?
Absolutely. We see
fish our waters?
Yes, and it's a neat thing to drive over a dam and look in a tailwater, which is an area that walleye and sauger both like at certain times of the year, and see a carousel of boats down there. And when you talk to them, it's people after the walleye. So we're seeing more participation in and out of state anglers. And I talked to some fishing guides, and they tell me for months they are booked up for walleye trips on their Tennessee river systems. And that's a lot of people out of state coming in. And so obviously before we were stocking them, that was not available. So, you know, it's exciting. It really is. It's a great fish, and it just provides a lot for the angling public.
So that Watts Bar has done so well. Is that being extended, that stocking being extended elsewhere?
Yes. So we went immediately downstream to some other reservoirs, and then our West Tennessee reservoirs have also looked at that and implemented some there, or in the process of it. So we've learned a lot through that. And we'll talk about, hopefully before the show's out, about a study. I don't want to get ahead of, where we're at now, but, a study where we're really diving in even more, looking at Watts Bar.
So when Mike and I were talking about walleye, here it is, this predatory fish. I was like, what about all the other predatory? What about our largemouth? And how do we know that there's not an impact on those other species when we're stocking walleye? Talk about that for us,
That is
Mike.
a great question and consideration. And anglers ask that kind of question, and it's something as a fisheries reservoir manager you have to consider. Are we getting this thing too heavy on the predator side and not enough forage? And we have ways of looking at that. So one way we look at that is by looking at the walleye themselves, and we can take their length and their weight, basically get kind of a score or a calculation. Like if we go to the doctor and they get your height and age and all that, and tell you should be in this. I'm not going into that. But so they get a score, and we know if that score is good, it tells us there's a direct correlation that they have a lot of food available. They're doing really well, and they do. They look great. We also, some of the different methods that we use for sampling walleye are creel and angler surveys. And, I was thinking about the cold weather that we're in right now, and our creel clerks are out there across the state grinding it out, interviewing anglers. And it's such valuable information. We can figure out from those interviews harvest, lengths and weights of what they're catching, socioeconomics, all kind of things that we can tie back into this. So, and then we can look at other sport fish in those systems as well. Mimi, that question, and make sure they're in good shape. So there's not too much competition that one predator's doing better than another. So that all checks out and looks really good for the walleye. And I would add, since I'm talking about forage, the walleye's primary diet in a reservoir is going to be those shad species, threadfin, gizzard shad, skipjack herring. And they'll also eat, and we have a couple of ANS out there, blueback herring and alewives.
ANS, aquatic nuisance species or invasive species.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. And so they eat those as well. And if we have time, I'll tell you about the problem when they eat alewives later on. So.
Oh, gosh. All right. Pick it up, Jason.
A little faster. No, I ain't saying speed up.
That's all. It's so interesting. And a lot of people, when they're targeting these fish, we'll talk a little bit about that for anglers in a bit. But, but knowing what they eat is an important thing.
Sure.
And that they're not out competing other sport fish is amazing.
It is.
That we're seeing the health. So you mentioned a little bit about that, but we have creel surveys going on. But how else are you looking at all these sport fish to ensure their healthy populations?
So we'll use a variety of methods to go out and do scientific surveys. And for fish like walleye, well, you can use gill nets, and just simply putting gill nets out in the water column there, and they swim in. It's called entanglement gear. Electrofishing works really well. And, as we think about collecting fish for our hatcheries, we do it electrofishing. It doesn't harm the fish. Nets can be a little more invasive. They can get some injuries sometimes with that. Yeah. But we electrofish below the dams. And I'll tell you, it was a real gratifying moment on Watts Bar. and the other reservoirs, even Chickamauga, when knowing that we have a young stocking project of walleye in those systems, but they're doing so good that we can collect fish there now to use in our hatcheries.
That's cool.
That was a really gratifying moment, and we really lean hard on those systems now.
Wow.
And other places across the state too that provide, like Center Hill provides a really good broodfish source, and Del Hollow. But that was nice to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, makes you feel real good. Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, full circle moment there.
Yeah, it was. It really was. Yeah.
So I just want to restate what those reservoirs are providing to allow all those fish to do so.
Yeah,
just to go back through.
Sure.
That.
So if we get back kind of to just the dynamics of the reservoir, the habitats there, they have oxygen, the temperature. And when I say temperature, you're like, what do you mean by that? Well, in the summer, walleye like the thermal refuge, and so do our striped bass and some other species, where they have a really preferred temperature. And typically for a walleye in the summer, it's 68 to 75 degrees. And that's where they like to hold up. And they can find these resources in our reservoir, and they'll go there and lay up. So the habitat's there, the forage is there, the water quality's there, the thermal refuge is there. And also there is in the upper ends of these reservoirs and in tailwaters, there is opportunity for them to spawn and where they need that appropriate current and stuff to do that. And they keep going to those places every year. And walleye too are very mobile. They're very, very mobile. They're not afraid to travel.
Well, we always say Tennessee's a great place to hunt and fish, and it's also a great place to grow fish.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very.
How much better could it get?
Oh man, and our hatcheries, boy, they do outstanding work growing fish. And just while you're on that topic, just this year alone, TWRA hatcheries produced 2.9 million walleye fingerlings to be stocked in respective bodies of water across the state.
Cool.
And last year it was 2.2 million.
Yeah.
So incredible job. Shout out to all of our hatcheries and staff. Wouldn't be possible without it. And when I look at the latest hatchery reports, walleye is the number one as far as number of fish that we're raising in our hatcheries in Tennessee now. So that shows the demand on that fishery and an expectation, I guess, by the public too, to keep it at that level of opportunity, with walleye. So,
but then to have that habitat and that forage area, and all that, naturally too, which is great.
Like I said, that point about we're getting that reproduction. We're like, all right, walleye, we know you're having trouble with this. We're going to help you here, and you put them in the system, and man, they do well. Yeah. They do well.
What's the growth rate you're seeing on walleye?
Oh, wow. So it is incredible. So our statewide limit is 5 walleye, 16 inches. And we're seeing in some of our reservoirs, they get to 16 inches, which is also the size and age of sexual maturity. A 2-year-old sometimes.
Wow.
A 2-year-old fish gets to 16 inches. And then for sure by 3-year-old in some systems.
Wow.
So it's incredible.
16 inches at 2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's great.
To go walleye fishing.
I know it. That's what exactly.
Nice fish sandwich.
And I keep talking about all this to anglers, and they show me their excitement, and they pat you on the back and appreciate it, but I'm still not seeing the amount of fillets I need to see as a courtesy thank you, Mike. I did have one guy one time. I told him where to go off the bank fishing, and he caught some and brought me a couple.
That's so sweet. That's nice.
That's fun.
So we've given that kudos to our hatchery group, and we love them so much and the work that they do.
Yeah.
But tell us what that propagation actually looks like in Tennessee.
So typically, walleye are going to be spawning in that March to early April time frame, and we'll go out and collect brood fish, the mom and daddy fish, take them back to the hatchery systems, and there the eggs will be extracted, squeezed out, and the milk from the males will be added to that. The eggs will go through that process. They'll be incubated, and it replicates being in a river system in jars that the water's tumbling through there.
Wow, that's cool.
And then they'll come to a fry stage, and when they're in that fry stage, we'll locate them out to ponds, and we'll grow them out for, usually it's 30 to 60 days, and they have to be checked because they're such voracious eaters, they'll start eating each other. They get real cannibalistic. And so we'll look at that, look at kind of the physique of them, and it's like, we got to stock these now. And a lot of times when you're getting them out, they'll have another walleye in their mouth that they've been eating on.
And that's called, tell everybody what that's called. Perseverus.
Oh, yeah, Piscivorous. Yeah, I thought you were talking about cannibalism. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
The nicer
Piscivores. I think the next time I go and eat some sushi, I'm going to say I just want my Piscivore side to come out of me today. So, yeah, that means a fish eater. So, piscivorous. Yeah. Thank you. Mimi loves that word.
I do.
You don't hear it.
It's the nice way of saying cannibalistic.
Well, and a fish eater, so we hear omnivore and carnivore and herbivore and all that, but you don't hear the fish eater too much. So yeah,
and that fry stage is not the fry stage. You and I are thinking.
Not grease.
That's why I said it looks
Drop
like
in the grease and add a little ketchup, right?
Yeah, I wanted to say it looked like a hair with a bubble, so nobody would correlate it to some French
not
fries.
breading. And
Exactly.
All right. So we've talked a little bit about that propagation, but we're getting them out there. They're getting to this great size of 16 inches within 2 to 3 years, which is amazing. How is that reflective? What do Tennessee anglers think about walleye? What's walleye mean to an angler?
So that concept earlier in the segment, I was talking about how historically on Watts Bar and other Tennessee rivers, we stock Sauger, and there are a lot of people dedicated to that Sauger fishery, and still are. By the way, Sauger still naturally reproduce in our systems. They haven't gone extinct. 2 years ago, they kicked out some really good production on their own. And one thing I feared, or at least thought, was like, of those dedicated Sauger anglers, how are they going to be receptive to this walleye fishery now that's coming? And so now that they've seen how productive it's been, and all that coming to fruition, that they're big enough to keep and catch and all that, I haven't heard any complaints, about it there. And repeat that last part of that question.
I just wonder, what do walleye mean to Tennessee anglers?
Yeah, so I think it means a lot, and I think it's the opportunity that it provides. I mean, it's a big fish, big fight. They're really a fish that you can pattern pretty easy. I talked about thermal refuges, so they're going to be congregating in certain places, and when you find those, they're going to typically be good year after year. Things can shift, patterns. Their spawning activity is going to be relatively, for the most part, in the same places. They're going to be after, shad-like species to eat, so there's a lot of the mystery taken away on how to be successful with them, but the anglers absolutely love it. And I hadn't heard anybody complain, and I've just seen a lot of excitement generated every year around that fishery by the anglers.
And talk a little bit about, I know you all with the creel surveys know what's coming into the trips, or how many into the state, and how many people are out there fishing for walleye. Talk a little bit about those numbers, Mike. They're amazing.
Yeah, so we had, last year we had over 6,000 trips, for the walleye there, and in some of our reservoirs that I was looking at. But overall, we had 16,000 trips, across the state for people, and that's not every reservoir represented. That's only the ones that we were doing creel surveys.
This episode is so good, it will continue next week.
This is Tennessee WildCast. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and tuning in. And we'll see you next time.
Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org. And follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram. You can invest in Tennessee's wildlife future by purchasing a license at GoOutdoorsTennessee.com. That's GoOutdoorsTennessee.com.